This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, can you guys hear me and see my screen?
Yes,
Yes.
Perfect. So yesterday I showed you this slide, right? I think we were talking about all the stages and everything. Now, if you see, right, in a automation, there are multiple tools actually which we really have. So, for example, you have ARM templates, which is for automation. You have Terraform, okay? You have Git, whatever we talked about, right? Git Actions. Git Actions is nothing but GitHub Actions, right? It's nothing but the CI/CD pipeline. You have something like a Jenkins. You might have heard about Jenkins, right? It's also a very popular tool. You have Terraform is there, yeah, and then Kubernetes definitely. Moreover, if you talk about Kubernetes, because everything whatever you're going to do in Kubernetes, right? Be it your normal kubectl or using Helm charts or using anything else, right? All these things are really going into the particular thing, and then there are some okay, so these are some of the popular tools. Ansible is also there, right? I say Ansible is there, Chef is there. Okay, there is something like a Chef, Ansible, and all those things. Now these all the tools actually have a different purpose. Okay, so what is the purpose? So say like in case if you want to provision a infrastructure in cloud, right? So that means you need to create this all the resources. Say like you want to create a virtual machine, maybe you want to create or database servers. I say you want to deploy a virtual machine and a database server in a Azure environment, correct? Now, what happened, to create this Azure environment, okay, you can either run it using the Terraform, okay, so Terraform can really be used for creating this particular purpose, or you can also use ARM templates, right? These are one of the thing which you can really do it. Using this one you will be able to deploy or you can create this application, create these resources. Now after creating these resources, like say like you want to create some, you want to create some configuration, database configuration, because in most of the applications we also talk in a language like a bootstrap. Now, what is this bootstrap method? Bootstrap is means, say like in case if I need to ensure that in my on my virtual machine, I need some more packages to be installed, which is like I want to have the Nginx install. I want to configure the Nginx, maybe config file something like that. There are some packages which I need to really install, and I need to also install some dependencies to make sure that my application is also there, dependencies and everything. So my so my application configuration can really work on. So whenever I really run a deployment, application deployment, everything is predefined configure. Okay, that is one thing. Second thing, I can also configure some database configuration. Maybe I want to create some sample database. I want to ensure that this kind of a configuration I'm really creating. So all this configuration, when I talk about that configuration, you can really do it using a Ansible. Okay, so Ansible is not for creating the resources. It is for configuring the resources. You can use it for creating also, but definitely people are not using Ansible nowadays that much. I don't see Ansible is really having heavily getting used. Okay, yes, but in might some scenarios it might be. Jenkins is one of the technology actually which is also used for CI/CD pipeline. So combining these two things, right? How you will be running Ansible? Ansible cannot run automatically, or Terraform or ARM templates cannot run automatically. So they have to be run either using a Jenkins, okay, or using a GitHub Actions or our pipeline, right? Whatever the pipeline we are talking about. So in case if I talk about pipeline, definitely I think that pipeline will be also an option. Azure pipeline, which we are talking about, right? Azure pipeline. So this Azure pipeline will also be working for deploying this application. This is something. Now all these things, it uses something like a Groovy. It's a technology which is again considered as a Groovy language actually, which is really coming here. Ansible works on YAML, completely YAML. Okay, GitHub Action also work on YAML. Azure pipeline also work on YAML. Okay, ARM template work on YAML as well as JSON both. Okay, Terraform works on HCL. They created their own thing, which is a combination of YAML and JSON, right? Now Kubernetes. Definitely Kubernetes is right deploying and means you are creating a Kubernetes cluster. So Kubernetes cluster creation can be happen using a Terraform, right? You can have a Kubernetes cluster which you can really run with Cube8. I'll just say K8. Okay, so you can use Kubernetes creation using a Terraform, but all the application deployment inside Kubernetes, right? That will be all using kubectl or a Helm chart. Now, this Helm chart and Kubernetes only understand YAML. So these are the technologies. Kind of YAML is a format. It's a kind of like a structure which can use to deploy these kind of a technology, and these are all different technologies, and there are multiple others. There are like hundreds of technologies which are really there, but these are the popular one as I mentioned, and these all are really using either a YAML or an HCL is the only thing which is different here, but most of them are really using YAML, and Jenkins is anyways nobody's really using. There is one more thing, right? Because we have a Kubernetes, everything, whatever you are going to deploy on Kubernetes, be it your Argo CD or anything, right? Istio. There are a lot of actually tools which are really there. All these tools nowadays are really using because they are going to deploy on Kubernetes. They have to really use YAML thing because Kubernetes only understand YAML. That's it. As simple as that. And become YAML is becoming so popular. That's why everything is really there. Now here, definitely, when you talk about Docker is not a tool or a technology. It is kind of like package manager or building a package. So running a Docker or creating that Docker, you need two things. One is Docker client, okay, which is nothing but your CLI, and then a second thing is you need a Docker file. When you talk about Docker, it's just a Docker file and Docker CLI. That's it. So to with this both the combination, you will be kind of like creating this one. So Docker file have in a different format. Okay, they have a like file. You need to create that file, and that file, if you once you create, you can just run a Docker CLI to build or create that image, and then you can really save that image to some remote repository. And then definitely deployment will happen only in YAML. So far clear?
So it means that AML format as well as Ansible format same.
Ansible is a technology. YAML is a format. As simple as that.
Rohit, technology, Ansible is a tool, separate tool. I know this.
Yeah.
But my doubt is here, if I'm wrong, please clear me. The writing the code. So yesterday
Mm-hmm.
we create the pipeline, right? Creating pipeline, the YAML format is there. There is
Mm-hmm.
some code which automatically generated.
Hmm.
But Ansible, we the configuration file we are going to write it, right? YAML file. So
Yes.
the here is the code is different and Azure pipeline code is different. That's what you're trying to say. Or
Yes, yes.
code
Code
is
definitely will be different. Yes, yes, absolutely. The
okay,
formatting is different. Formatting
correct.
is exactly same. So you cannot use exactly same thing with Ansible. It's not possible,
So then
right?
we have to
It's
learn YAML language also again. Correct, no?
yes, yes, yes. YAML learning. That's what I'm telling you. YAML learning is not difficult. YAML is a very straightforward language. Whatever you really go with, YAML is like you have only few things. As I mentioned, right? In case if you want to write something with a YAML, so how you can really mention, say like you have in a programming language, generally what happens, you either go with some internal details and everything, you can really go with that one. For example, I'll just tell you, say like you want to
Okay.
create one name here. I'm just saying name, okay, and then you need to really provide a mobile number. I'm just giving an example here, phone number. Okay. I'm building up one script here, which is really going and creating something like that. So I'm just saying now skills, for example. Okay. This is skills and then city. Now what I'm going to happen is here we need to understand how these things really work out. Say like in case if I want to define this in a YAML format, name will always be one, right? So I can just mention RK here. Mobile number is definitely one. I'm not going to mention, but in case if I have multiple mobile numbers, so how can I mention in a multiple mobile number? In case if I have just one mobile number, I can simply put up space here and I can just mention number here. But if I have multiple mobile numbers, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say hyphen and then mobile number one, whatever the name I have. So I'll say mobile one M1 and colon and then maybe 999 and then hyphen M2 colon then maybe again 979797 something like this. Again same thing with phone. In case if I have a phone, I can just mention the phone number whatever I have. In case if I don't have phone number, I'll keep it blank. I'll not provide anything here because it is a blank. So city, okay, I can just say Hyderabad, for example, right? Skills. Now again, I will know that there will be multiple skills. I am going to say skill one, S1, and then maybe DevOps, and then S2 and all those things. S2. This is something which I have. Now, in case if I want to give some more details, right? Maybe I can give some more details about that. Okay, education. I'll just say education. Okay. So in the education, say like if I say my first education, say like in case if I want to go with HSC, I'm just giving a maybe higher secondary HC, right? Higher secondary. And I'll say higher secondary maybe say like 12th, whatever you have. Now for this 12th, or I can really go into multiple details here. I can go okay with the higher secondary when I'm going into the details, I can really provide stream. Okay, then when I talk about stream, I can mention that okay, stream was maybe select science example, right? Then college name, then again I have to come here and I'll say college name here and maybe XYZ college name. Now this is a format. This is how you will have to understand, because say like tomorrow in case if I want to read data, and here I can also provide something like I can just provide one thing here, maybe a simple example could be one more company. I'll just say company. I'm just making something like company, and here maybe a company name something like this, and I'm going to say XYZ and city XYZ, city colon XYZ, and maybe position colon XYZ or DevOps something like this. Okay. Now in case if I type this YAML file, how a program is going to read and how I have to mention to the particular program that how to read it. The first thing is straightforward. Name, I will say go ahead and take out the name as it is. In case if I have a mobile number, I will say, hey, look, I have multiple mobile numbers. So I need to really put up a mobile number, mobile, then dot zero, because there is an arrow actually which is really there. Mobile zero and then dot M1. Okay, and then I can just say whatever the M1 you can just take out. This is my mobile number one. In case if I want to put up a mobile two, mobile dot zero one dot, because when you list down this div, you have to mention like this one M2. Now in case if I want to mention the company here, because company is just one, but I have more details under the company. How can I mention? I can mention company dot name. Okay, company dot city and company dot position. Dot is what? Dot means it is actually going inside, okay, inside this company and getting me the name here. Inside the company and getting me the city, because the position, if I see position, the first position is company, the second position is my name. And because I don't have an array, I don't have to mention something like this. So this is how you will be mentioning this. Now, how a program understand, you need to write it like that way. But this is a YAML format, as simple as that. So what these guys mention, look, I don't want here in the Ansible format, it says that look, when you are really putting up the Ansible configuration, you should not really put up a name here. You should put up something like a full name here. Then only my Ansible will understand. But when I'm writing this one, say like in case if I'm just writing a simple thing here, just two things, mobile number and company. I'm just putting up something like this, right? Company name, full name, or a name here, colon XYZ, and I'll just remove it just to ensure that how we need to really put up here. Okay, so in a YAML, it's saying, look, this is how you have to mention. But in a GitHub action or Azure thing, what it's saying, no, 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 I don't want name here. I want display name here. Okay, no, no, I don't want a company name here. Maybe company ID here. not a city here, location here. Okay, not position here, role here. Got it? This is a change. That's it. However, the formatting is exactly same, but the naming nomenclature, right? You know, whatever the naming I'm putting up inside, so this can really understand this one only. Azure Pipeline understand this. YAML, when I'm really writing a YAML for Kubernetes, Kubernetes, oh, no, 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 this is not the way I should really go with. I should have only something like a API version. First thing should be API version. Okay, and then you should really provide the V1. Then you need to provide a kind. Kind is say like pod. Okay, then you need to provide metadata. Okay, and then, and this is a format, right? This is format metadata, and inside this metadata you can mention name. Okay, say like I want to give a pod name or application, whatever the name I have, I'll say web app one pod, and maybe namespace, something like this, right? I can mention namespace and I can say, okay, this is a namespace is Dev, for example. And then I need to also provide a specification. What is specification? Specification could be, okay, now I want what image I need to really use. So I'm going to say, okay, use Nginx image. Okay, what is the name of that Nginx application? I'll just say web app one. Okay, which port you need to really open? I need to say, okay, 80 port open. Getting it? Exactly same thing which we are really writing, but the thing is it is equivalent to what is the understanding you have. And yes, you need to learn this. YAML is one thing, formatting is one thing. However, to which application you are going to write it, you need to understand that, and you have to change your code, your thing according to that particular thing. So far with me, guys, any questions on this? Clear?
Yes, yes, clear.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, I think this is. So now, as I mentioned, right, when we are talking about the technologies, different technologies, different options we have. And yesterday I've shown you how we can really run a normal pipeline. Okay. So before that, we have kind of like created this one. I've showed you how the execution really work out. Now here, let's try to understand when we try to create this particular piece, right? Okay. This is a general pipeline which automatically gives. Now, only good part about these things is, say like once you configure one YAML file, if you want to create a copy of this YAML file, you don't have to copy, like, no, you don't have to write everything. These templates are readily available. You just have to copy paste and modify the changes whatever you want to do. Say like in case if you want to change the kind, maybe your pod. So I am going to create a pod. I want to create a pod. So instead of creating a pod, you want to create something like a service or a deployment. So there are different formatting, and you already have that format. You don't have to really, nowadays writing a code is not a big deal. You can either go it from the chat GPT or you get it from a lot of options nowadays available. You don't have to really write anything, and these code will be always available. You just need to understand which code where to use and what are some of the basic changes you need to do. That's it, as simple as that. Okay. Similarly, when I'm giving you this particular YAML file or this pipeline, I'm asking you to, hey, write a, yeah, pipeline. You don't have to write up everything from scratch. Everything is available. Say like in case if I tell you, hey, look, you have to create one more stage here. What you're going to do? You're going to now not going to write a code here, right? Saying that, okay, this is a stage, and then the stage name is something to change. No, you're not going to do it. What are you going to do it? You are going to just copy everything whatever you have here. Okay, I'm asking you to create a new stage. Copy this. You know that this is where the stage is starting. Stage one is starting. You copy it, you paste it below. Okay, now what? You start changing the stage. Now you can say this is my deploy stage. Okay, you change the display name. Display name is what? Deploy to web app. Job ID. Okay, deploy. Job display name again deploy. I don't want to say. Image name is fine, no problem. Now in this one, okay, now in this context, what is going to happen? Sorry. Apparently I'm doing it in a wrong way place. I should not really do it here, but Let me show you. Okay, so say like we are going to create here as a deploy here, right? I'm just saying deploy. Maybe we're just changing everything here. Deploy thing. Deploy to web app. Okay. Now here also you are just changing the deploy name here. I'll just say. And then you're saying build again deploy. Now here this is the task actually which you have created, but this task is only for building up the Docker image. Now you are done with the Docker image building. You don't want to build the image anymore. You want to what? You want to really change this task from Docker to web application. Okay. So you can really type here a web application app, web application deployment. But again, you don't have to type anything here because this is the part which is automatically giving you in the pipeline. So you don't have to really type anything. And let's try to find out how that thing really work out. So you don't have to, you just have to change this entire task here and then write a different task which will have different inputs, and you need to understand that input. That's it. Okay, let's try to see that. Now if we go back, I'll just open a dev here. Look, the more you see, the more you understand. Okay, what is happening? What is happening? Easily you will see that. Okay, so I'm going in the pipeline. Okay, so let's create a pipeline. Let me record the steps in the recording. Okay, so we are here. Okay, I'm going to, so we already have a repository here, right? And under that repository, we have this Docker file. I've removed the older Docker file, whatever we are going to create. Now we are going to create a new pipeline. Let's click on here, create a pipeline. Okay, go ahead and select the Azure repository here. I'm just going to recreate that same pipeline here. And then it is asking me to build and push. Exactly same thing which you are going to create here. I'll just say select. Okay, I'll click on here, continue. It is authenticating with me, right? That okay, where I'm having, I'll just click here. Okay, next, this password, next. Okay, now it is giving me an option to select the repository. Okay, here I'm going to change this web app one, and here also I'm going to change the name of my folder because I'm going to create this web app one and say validate. This is I'm creating only for one application. Even though I have multiple applications, I can create only one, or I can create everything in one go. Let's see that. So I can create one pipeline, which is ideally not a best way, but I can tell you, I can create one pipeline where I can build images for everything. I can build the image for Java, .NET, ASP, your Python, everything is there, and I'm going to push that everything, whatever I really want. I'll show you that. Okay. So say like here, as we mentioned, we are starting here. Now these two things are really important. Now what is this trigger? Trigger is nothing but that when I want this pipeline to auto trigger, automatically start. So whenever someone is sending or making any change into my main branch, right? We have talked about branching and all. So whenever someone is trying to push anything into my main branch, this particular pipeline should automatically start. Now, why I want this pipeline to automatically start, right? If I go back into my thing, what is our purpose? Our purpose is to create a pipeline. Okay. Our purpose is to create an automation. Okay. For that only we are creating a pipeline. Now here we have a Git, and inside this Git we have two things. We have our code, whatever I have just mentioned to you, right? We have this code, and we have our and inside this code we have all Docker file and everything is there, and we have my pipeline here, Azure pipeline.yaml file. Okay. Now when I am writing this YAML file, this is a one-time task I'm going to create. I have written this YAML file, and I'm responsible as a DevOps engineer. I will modify this. I will create this one time whenever I'm just going to create. And there will be a developer, okay, who is continuously working. Now, this guy is continuously updating this code. We both have access to this Git repository, both. Okay, and we like 100 people can really work on one repository. But this guy will never update this Azure pipeline. I'll ensure that he is not touching this one. I'm the guy who is really writing this particular pipeline, an Azure pipeline, and I'm updating it in case if I require. But one time I created, and one time I deployed this pipeline into my Azure, because this is something which I have. I have my pipeline, and in my pipeline, I have said, hey, use this YAML file. So whenever this pipeline is going to run, this will use this YAML pipeline, YAML file, and whatever configuration I have in this YAML file, it will run and it will execute. Now, when it should execute? Whenever a developer is updating anything, whenever a developer is doing any commit, like commit means any change, he might be doing it 100 times in a day or one time in a year, doesn't matter. But whenever he is doing that change, this particular pipeline will get initiated. It will use this, but the initialization trigger will be using this code. Anything, whatever I'm going to put up inside this one, even though if I change the YAML file, so this trigger is not just for this code only. We can make it for code also, but this trigger can be for pipeline also. So like tomorrow, in case if I made any change into my pipeline, still it should really run. Now, what my pipeline really is doing? Well, my pipeline is doing the complete CI/CD, right? It is building the image, and then it is deploying that image. As simple as that. Simple, nothing big, nothing small. So it is building and it is deploying. That's it. But this build and deploy is a continuous process. That's what I want, and should be an automated process. So I don't need to care about. So once I configure this pipeline, once everything is settled, okay, until there is any change, until there is any change in the code, in the Docker file, in the something like that, I'm not going to touch it. My job as a DevOps engineer is complete. But I need to replicate this to hundreds of Git repositories, everything, and I have to create this pipeline maybe for 100 different repositories. So say like now, different repositories there, different development team is there. I can use the almost same Azure pipeline. I can copy paste this one. I can make some modifications, small modifications, and I can also create different pipeline which will build different image and will deploy the different thing. I can do that. Making sense, guys? Okay.
Yes, we can
So
clone the jobs, right? Existing pipelines.
we can.
We can clone the existing pipelines, right, to do
Yes,
modification.
absolutely. It's like, and that's the beauty, right? That's why we are using this YAML thing, because you can just
Yes,
clone means what? You can create a clone. You can create this YAML file, copy paste this YAML file, and create a new pipeline. As simple as that.
yes, yes.
Correct? So now there are more advanced things, guys, come up. It's like lot of things actually which are really there, but this is the basics, right, which is very really important. You understand that, so you don't have to really, as you go, as you understand that, things will really become more meaningful. Okay, now this is a trigger. This is also important. Now, as a part of this one, right, when I talk about trigger is something which you have understood, that when you want to trigger, and then again here I am mentioning that when it should really trigger. It should like whenever someone changes the dev environment, whenever someone changes the trigger dev environment, and everything is a different, right? I can create because I may have a different set of things, right? I can have your pipeline which is really created. You can have your own development environment, production environment. So for every different environment I can mention here. Okay, now one specified with the trigger. Another thing what we are really mentioning here is the resources means repository, the self repository. Now here what happens when this pipeline is running? This pipeline needs to run and it needs to copy this entire code back into this system. Otherwise it will not run anything. It is not possible to really deploy anything on that one. So say like if I have this one minute, I'm going to say this is my code which I am really running here. This code will be really important to get downloaded inside this pipeline. Otherwise, how can I really run it? Correct? So it will download everything. That means it is going to do the self repository, self kind of like a initialization and self deployment here. That's why we are talking about here resources. Resources mean nothing but the files. From where I should really take the file? Take the file from your repo, and then it's the self repo. So whatever files I have inside this repository, right, you should really take all that files and download that file, clone that file in while before running. And that's a mandatory thing, right? If you remember, when I logged in the Ubuntu system, the first thing what I did, I said git clone, and then only I was able to perform the action. So exactly same thing we need to do it inside the system also. Otherwise, how system will understand that which code I need to create a build form, or which code I need to really use to create the Docker build or Docker image? Definitely that's the same thing which I am having in my repository. So every time, because what is going to happen, this particular pipeline will get trigger whenever something changes. It will run for some time, it will execute everything, and this file, this will get deleted, as simple as that. This instance, whatever the instance this pipeline is running on, so say like there is an instance which actually get created, and that instance is also a Docker, Docker kind of like, you can say, Docker container, a small tiny Docker container on which my pipeline is running. So first it download the code, then it run this pipeline, whatever the steps you have mentioned here, everything it will run one by one steps. Once the steps are, everything is done, build is done, deploy is done, this will get deleted. Your YAML file will become a source of truth. Every time, whenever you run, it will again create a new, it will create the same thing where you have, and it will start creating a Docker container here, and again it will run every time. No matter how many images you are really going to create. And by default, that parallelism request, what I mentioned, right? By default, it will allow you only one container which can really run. So in case if you have created 10 pipelines, right? Created one more pipeline here, and this imagine your pipeline is running here. This pipeline will become in queue. This will not run. Why? Because ideally you will be provided only one free instance. Okay, no matter you are using a free trial or a paid trial, you will only be allowed with one instance. But in case if you want more instances, you don't want your pipeline to become a queue here, you have to purchase another instance and you have to start paying for that instance. Or you can do one more thing, which is like you can create your own instance, which is an Azure VM. So you can install you can use Azure VM for as a runner. So this is generally a concept which says runner. So you can actually install your Azure VM, install all the Docker and everything inside this VM, and you tell your pipeline, hey, run everything in my Azure VM. This is also required in case if you want more security, because you don't know, right, where this particular container is running, what kind of a data you are copying, because everything here is getting copied onto that one. So for a more secure way, you can create your own virtual machine which is having all the required vulnerability scannings and everything, and ensuring that it is not really there. And moreover, it is also connected with your internal things. Say like you created a your application or a virtual machine application which is only peered or only accessible, it is not having any public access, and it is only accessible within the network. Now this Docker container cannot access this one. Why? Because this is not in the same network where my virtual machine is. So in that scenario, you can really create a different virtual machine, okay, and can really run it. This is a little advanced topic. We'll see that how we really do it, but this is why it really required. Okay, now once we have all these things, we can also mention variables. Even though this is a kind of like a YAML file is itself is a variable driven, it's all the variable which we are talking about here. We can specify variables inside this one. Okay, and when we are specifying the variables, you can mention something like this, right? You have a Docker registry service connection. Now, as I mentioned, right, yesterday or day before yesterday, that we need this service connection, which is very important. and this is a ID which is really taking it. Now how it got created, I'll show you that. Image repository, this is the name of image repository which I'm going to create. Container registry, this is my container registry name, automatically picked up because I connected that one. Docker path, it now it is saying that where is my Docker path. So build source directory means what? My source directory where my application like my entire thing, right? So in case if I open this in a new window, if I go, this become my source directory. That means on source directory I have these many folders. So what I'm telling in this pipeline is that, oh look, on my source directory, on my root directory, okay, there is a folder named web app. Okay, there is a folder named web app. I think it should be web app only, not web app one. So I will just have to remove it. 1 minute. Image repository is web app one, but image folder name should be web app here. Okay, and Docker file. Why? Because in my web app, I have this Docker file and use this Docker file. Use this Docker file to create a image. I'm saying, okay, fine. And this is where I'm putting as a path as a variable here. So how I'm defining the variable, Docker file path colon, and within that variable I can use variable. These are the whatever you're talking about build dot something. That means these are the predefined variable and part of your pipeline. This is something which is not there, but when you are running a pipeline, right, you can also use some pipeline defined variables, okay, inside this one. So you can use those variable as a part of your entire YAML pipeline. Perfect. Tag. What is the tag? So tag, as you know, right, whenever you are creating a Docker image, you are tagging that image like version 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like that way. Now I don't want to really give a random tag here, or I want to give a auto generated tag here, not one, because if I give one only, every time it will give one, because every time my pipeline runs, every time this tag will really getting a tag one here. So I want a dynamic tagging here. I want a incremental tagging. I want something like it should automatically increment. It's like 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, like that way. So every time I know that which image I build up and what is the version which is running in my production environment or in my development environment, I can really create that one. So here, what we are trying to do here, we are trying to get a build. So build is where you can really get all the variables, predefined pipeline variables. But inside that, there is also a concept like a build ID. Now what happens whenever this pipeline will run, it will generate one ID. That ID will be again 1, 2. It will start from 0, but it might go like 1000, 2000, whatever you have. So every time it will have an incremental ID. So that incremental ID is something which I am automatically assigning to my tag. So it will mention that one. Now this is, I'm not saying this is a best practice, definitely there you can really use based on that one. So you have to mention something like 1.0.2, 1.0.3, whatever generally people goes with, you can really mention that. But in this one, just to make it simple, we are using the predefined variable, and that predefined variable automatically taking the build ID and will update that. Now once we configure this variable within variable, how can I use this variable? So you can see here, when I'm talking a variable, when I'm receiving or using that variable, I'm mentioning that in a dollar, first of all, single quote, dollar, and then I'm putting up inside the brackets and then the name of that particular thing. So in case if I want to use this tag or this image name, and there is also a image name which really I'm going it. Now here, this is also interesting thing. We have a VM image name here, and then we are talking about Ubuntu latest. So what I want my pipeline to run on Ubuntu latest. You can change it to Windows latest. You can change it to anything, whatever you want. But Ubuntu latest is the kind of like, because everything works on Ubuntu, or in case if your application requires specifically to run on Windows, then you should really use Windows here. But nowadays everything works in a window Ubuntu, so no issues on that one. Okay, now let's start with the stage. We have seen that, okay, the first stage is build, deploy stage, everything is there. Now here you can see that how this image name is getting used here. So I'm putting it inside a pool. So I can create multiple pools here, or there is already a pool actually which is got created, which can be used. You can just pull that pool and you can kind of like start assigning that one. Now why we are putting up this? Because we have to run this as a container, as I mentioned right just now. This is all a container, what is happening. But which container? I can specify that. One container is free, as I mentioned, but I can mention that, okay, I want Ubuntu container, or I want Docker, I want Windows container, or I want some any customized container. That's not a problem. You can define that. Okay, so I want this pool to be running, or this particular job to be run on Ubuntu system. I can create multiple jobs, or I can actually create job per job. I can run it on a different containers. That's fine. But then until this job is complete, the other container will not pick up. Okay. Now what I'm going to do, I said, okay, this is one I have done. Step, I can mention now task, Docker, build and everything. And here also it is taking all the image repositories and everything, right? You can see the image repository. Name is web app. Okay. You have a Docker file and everything. Now, in case if I want to create one more image here, what I need to really do here, because I'm already specifying the Docker path here, right? If you see, I can copy this entire thing because I want to create another thing. I can copy this and I can mention something like this. I can just paste it here. Second task. Now here I can just mention this task as build and push image, or I can say web app image. Okay, web app application image, web app image. Okay, here I want to say Python image. Okay, two tasks I have created, exactly same thing, but I'm just changing this one. And here I'm going to change this one. I don't want to, because automatically it is taking the repository, image repository as web app, and container registry is fine. But this the Docker path, right? It's change. So I'm going to copy this. I'm going to say no, 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 don't use this one. I'm going to make it here. Where is that? It's a Docker file path, right? I'm going to change this one. I'm going to say no, you don't use this one. I'm putting in a single dot, single thing here, and here also I'm going to change it. Okay. So now what is the change you need to do? Just this change. So instead of this one, now I'm going to say what is my Python app, right? So I need to copy this entire exactly same thing. Should not be capital or small letter. I should really put up something like this. And my repository name will also be changed now. I don't want this one. I'll just say Python app here. Okay. Python app. And here, this is my web app. Now I can delete this these things. I don't want image repository, right? Image repository was there, so I can get rid of these things, and I can also get rid of this. I will just need four things here which are common. Fine, no problem. So I've created one web app, image name here, and then the second image I'm going to create is the Python app, and exactly the same thing. I'm going to change this again into the, because command is fine, same thing here. Task is same. Okay, display name I've changed, and everything is fine. Let's save and run this. Let's see what is going to happen. Okay. So if you see, right, every time there is a build ID actually which get generated. Let me show you that. So this is also ID, one of the ID actually which get created. Also there is will be one thing I'll just show you. Okay, so it's already started creating these things. Okay, and then so it is first doing the build push to the image. Now it is doing the Python image. First it did the web application, then it is doing the Python image. Let's see. So web app is definitely there. So we can see that, it created, and then the ID of that one was 237. Let's see. Okay. So both things are completed. Now I don't know, but due to some issues, actually my ACR is not really showing the details. Let me see. ACR, 1 minute. Yeah, I can see this now. So I can see that Python application is also created and my web application is also created. If I click on this Python application, I can see this is a 237 tag and this is also should be 237 tag. Now, in case if I rerun that one, let's see what is going to happen. In case if I made any change, say like I went in here and because I've created that pipeline, now I can see this pipeline should be here. I'm just refresh this one. I'll just refresh. Okay, so I can see this is my pipeline, YAML.pipeline, which is having everything, whatever I have. I'm going to make a small change here. What small change? And here, if I go back, I don't see any pipeline here. It is pipeline is right here, and this Docker pipeline is fine. There's only one thing which is really working on. Very good. If I go back again to my pipelines, I'll just be here. I'll go here and I'll make a small change. Let's do that. And I'm going to make that small change inside my application. So I'll go to my web app. I'll open my index.html and here I'm going to edit. As a developer, I'm doing this, right? I'm copying this one and I'll paste it another one and I'll say this is the third test I am doing for Azure pipeline. Perfect. Now I'm going to commit and I'll say commit here. Now I haven't touched the pipeline, I haven't really run that pipeline, but automatically it should start. If I click here, you will see that there is a new pipeline which got triggered. Okay. Now if I click on this one, definitely it will perform exactly same thing every whatever last time it did. Okay, it is going to build that one. It is going to say, okay, I'm going to build everything. Now this time the ID will be changed because I have run this and you can see that how quickly now it is 238 automatically increment. Okay, this will also be 238. Yeah, here also Python app and both the apps are there. Perfect. I will go back to my repository. I will just refresh here. So in case if I refresh or I'll say refresh, I can see the another one. And because I want to maintain this one, right? Like the way we are maintaining, we are creating the versioning of our Git. I can also create a versioning of my image. So tomorrow, in case something happens with my application, I can revert back to this particular image, which is completely different, isolated, and created as one package. I can anytime go back and do these things. So this way, it will really maintain 100 copies of your images. You can create like you can maintain as many copies you want. But say like after every 100 thing, you want to delete this one, so you can really do it. Okay, so that's the main thing which we really can do here. Any questions, guys?
So these images are artifacts stored in ACR now.
Yes,
So not in Azure artifacts.
there is no as you mean pipeline Azure pipeline artifacts.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Azure pipeline
No, no, no,
artifacts.
no. We are not using Azure Artifacts. That's what. Artifacts is mostly used when we are using the old way of doing things. What was the old
Mm,
way? So old way was actually like, if you go back in the older days, what they used to do, they did not really created a container here, right? So the thing is, you have a code. Say like you have a Java code. Now what happens, in a Java code, you need to convert this Java code. You need to run some Maven on all those things. They used to run
mm,
some MVN, Maven, right? Maven, and once you do the maven run, then they will use to create some var file.
correct.
Okay, now this var file you need to store somewhere, and then you can deploy this var file to your application, maybe your server, web server, whatever you have. Okay, this is the old way, and I can show you here. I have the same thing. If I go back to my code, where is that web application here? Okay, if I go back to my code, I have this Java application. Inside this one, you can see this var sample.var file because this is a
Yes.
predefined thing which I have. I'm directly putting up this inside the Git, which is not a best practice. I'm again telling you. But what you can do is, in case if you have something like this, you can really deploy this particular thing in. So this var file, yes, you have to save it this var file to some place, and that's where you can really use as your artifact. Okay. But now, because we are not really creating any var file here, what we are doing is everything, whatever we are doing, we are actually creating inside a Docker file. So your Maven running inside Docker, it is creating a var file and it is generating one Docker image. Okay,
Okay, got it.
one
Yes,
Docker
yes.
image as a package of everything here. So now you don't need this var file. Why you should really save this in artifact? No, you should not, because this is again your application. Anybody can go and deploy that application. So you are now maintaining this Docker image and you are just deploying this Docker image into the web application. So where should you really keep this Docker image? Only in ACR.
Repository, correct. Registry.
Exactly, registries. So that's how you can really do it. Now, once I have this one, this is again pretty simple, right? It was all generated. Did I return any code here? No. It was just a sample changes which I have related. Now, because I have created this particular thing, I want to deploy my code into my application. Okay, that's the process we can now see, or maybe we can see it tomorrow. I think that way it will be seen, but I'm going to show you how we can really do it. So for that, before that, we need to ensure that we have one web application service which is already created. Okay. And then we need to also ensure that we have a proper service connection created. So tomorrow we are going to see that part where we are going to create a service connection. We are going to create one app service and we'll see how we can deploy. So two images we have. I can create two different app services. One is for web app, one is for the Python application, and we can deploy into two different things in a one pipeline itself. We can do that, not a problem.
Yeah, so far we did CI as per your
Yes,
understand, right?
so far we did. Yes, so far we did the CI, continuous integration. So continuous integration is happening and you are putting it everything. Now deployment, where you want to go to a deployment. We can do it on the web application. You can do it on a Kubernetes, wherever you want. So CI now
Rohit,
will not change.
yeah, small doubt, Rohit. So CI, where it comes test here now? Test,
Test
I
will
mean,
be after deployment.
okay.
After deployment. So it's like build, deploy, test.
Okay.
But then there are multiple testing which are now happening, right? Because you want to test the code, then you have to do it before. You have to
Mm.
and then deploy, and testing will be actually multi phases, right? It's depend on the environment. Say like you have built up the image. Now you first deploy that image into a dev environment. Then you will perform test. Then you will deploy it into the QA environment. Then you will perform test. Then you will do it in a production environment. You will do a perform. Then you will do the test. Every stage deployment, right? And you are not going to deploy directly in the production. Never happen,
Correct. So
right? You have
before,
to deploy that
before,
one by one, one by one.
hmm. Code scanning, where it comes here? Code scanning.
Code scanning will be part of your stuff,
See.
right? It's a part of your DevSecOps kind of. Okay, so code scanning will really come into the picture when you are having the process. So I'll just show you quickly. I have one presentation here. Give me
Yeah,
1 minute.
please. Yeah.
Mm, mhm. Okay, so this is a presentation which I have kind of like created. I'll just show you this one so you can understand that one. I'll quickly give you details. We'll get into more details about this one as we move on. Some of the things which may not be, let me be honest, because it's a quite a few things. It's lot, but I'll see in case if we can really do it something here. Okay, let me go back. Okay, so when we talk about DevSecOps, right? What is actually a DevSecOps? So when I talk about DevOps, this is generally a pipeline which really goes with. So you have build, push, deploy, and test. Generally, these are the four stages we generally go with. And now when you talk about the security, that's where the security really come into picture between these ones. So how we can really change into the DevOps to the DevSecOps. Every layer, whatever you are going to change, will be really part of become your security scanning, and that's important. That's where your DevSecOps really come into. How that DevSecOps really come into the picture? Say like if we have a integration points. So you start with the same CI/CD thing. First, you will do the code scanning. Second, you will do the vulnerability scanning, which is SAS, static application, security testing. Then you can do the build. Then you can do the same after building. You can do the image scan, whatever the image you have created immediately before scanning. Then you will do the push. Then you will deployment, say like in the Kubernetes. Then you will perform some testing. Then you will also have a vulnerability scan, okay, inside this one. So this is a kind of like a complete structure or a DevSecOps pipeline actually, which we really go with. Now this is not end. After this also you will have to do certain things like, there are some tools actually which are really useful. For example, Sonar Cube and Snake image scanning. You have this Trevi and all. Okay. Now when you go with a continuous scanning, this is important. So when you have a Kubernetes container registry, you will be deploying that in the Kubernetes environment, right? So continuous delivery, because now your image, your CI/CD is done, right? Your CI/CD is complete. Your image is in the container registry, and your application is running inside a Kubernetes cluster. So how you secure this? After that, it's a continuous security, as I mentioned. You will be continuously scanning this container registry. Might happen that during your CI/CD pipeline you might have missed one thing, your application, the one with Trevi or something. These are again small utilities, right? They are not 100% foolproof. So say like 99% it was able to cover, but 1% it missed. So you can actually capture that once your image is there inside the registry, because inside the registry that image will be for longer time, correct? Now once you have a longer time, you can put up some more scanning tools, more polished, more enterprise ready tools, which can continuously scan your image registry and see in case if there is any image which is having a vulnerability, and immediately identify and then notify you saying that, hey, there is an image which is having a problem, remove that image or fix that vulnerability. You can do that. Apart from this image repository, once you have an application, you need to really ensure that you are using secrets, you are using a continuous dynamic, static, because this will happen once you deploy. Static analysis will happen before deployment, but dynamic will happen once you deploy that application. So during the deployment, during the application is running, I can do the vulnerability scan. I can act like penetration testing. You might have heard about pen test, right? What is that pen test? It's like you are trying to purposefully break your system. So in case if you identify that as a hacker, you are connecting with your system, right? And you're trying to see what is that one loose end which can be exploited by other maybe some hacker or something. So you proactively do that. You can use something like a security events. You can use RBAC, right? You can use security policies. You can use web application firewall. There are a bunch of things, but these are part of the continuous security scanning. So one is your DevSecOps or your DevOps pipeline, and second thing is all about this. And this is a bigger thing. We will see some of them, not everything, but yeah, I'll explain you some of the important things here as we move. Perfect,
So
guys.
regression test also same, right? After deployment.
That is a completely testing.
Okay, okay,
You
okay.
have lot of testing things, right? You have a functional test, non-functional test, regression test, pen test is also one of the things, but that is definitely not a job of DevOps engineer.
Correct, correct, correct. Rohit,
DevOps
please send
engineer
me
will
this
not get it.
document.
Huh?
This doc- Please send me this doc now. This document,
Which one? I'll share. Wait.
please.
Yeah, I'll share that. It's nothing, right? I've created this one. It's also now recorded, so you can use this one. Not a problem. Generally, I don't share PPTs. I you
No, no,
can
no.
you can create that
It's
one.
like very good. Please send it so that see
No, I'll
most of the
see. I'll
employees.
see. Look,
Yeah,
there is a
whenever we
lot
go,
of work, man. You have to imagine that, understand that. And it's not like a simple thing. I have to spend a lot of time, energy, money,
correct,
to
correct.
build up something like this.
So most of the guys asking the explain the way CI/CD pipeline way. So somewhere we explaining is good, but bits missing something. They are not satisfying.
Okay, do you think this is satisfying?
Yeah, this is good. Actually, this document which you showed you, right? That's good actually. Share that document, please.
Yeah, I'll see. Generally, that's what I said. I don't generally share the documents which I share. I just share the recordings.
At least this document.
This is nothing. You can create that. It's a simple PPT which I've created. Nothing major here.
Okay, okay, okay.
Okay, guys, I think that's it for today. I will connect back again and we'll get into another topic, very exciting and very interesting one, which is important for your next steps, right? I'm also one more thing. I'm using this step recorder, which is a by default free utility. Actually, I'm trying to create some documents using this one. So you can also use in case if you want to kind of like create that document stuff, right? So which can give you all the step. But again, you have to do a lot of things here because it takes almost all the snapshots, whatever I have. So I'll create this, I'll modify this one, and I'll give it to you. Like this when it can really create. But yeah, I'm working on this one, so you can get this one. So at least for the practice, like you can see this is how it is taking the entire screenshots and everything. So I'll have to make sure that I'm putting a proper details here, so you can see some more understanding here. Perfect, guys. I think that's it for today. I will connect back again tomorrow, and we'll discuss further things.
Okay,
Bye.
bye bye.